I feel like it's a very universal feeling of when you have a crush on someone. When you have a crush on someone, it literally shifts the entire energy of your life. Like, the only time you think is to think of that person. You always want to be texting them. You're sitting there wondering, I wonder what they're doing right now. And even when you're talking to them, you'll visualize your future with them. And that's because having a crush is so fun and exciting, and it's such an intense feeling. And I think it's a feeling that like everyone has been through at some point. And I think that although like the feeling can be very fun and exciting, it's also very intense. And that is exactly how Ranae Marsden felt to her boyfriend, Brayden. Brayden was the kind of guy that Renee could talk to all day long and never get bored. They had the same hobbies, the same likes, same dislikes, same taste in music. It was like Renee had met her dream person. Like, she was already picking out wedding colors when she was talking to him. And over time, when she started to learn more about him and get to know him a lot more, she really viewed him as this emotional outlet as well. A person that she could go to with absolutely anything and never really feel like she's getting judged for it. And so through time, Renee slowly started to fall in love with Brayden. Now, the only problem with Brayden, though, is that Brayden was currently in prison. Now, Brayden was actually in prison due to an accident a couple years prior when he was in a motorcycle accident, where Brayden was driving the motorcycle and then unfortunately they crashed, and that led his best friend, who was sitting behind him, to pass away. And so because of that, Brayden was currently in prison. Now, Renee was actually introduced to Brayden by her best friend, Camilla. Now, going back a little bit, Ranae Marsden was born on October 15th, 1992 in Sydney, Australia, to her mom, Teresa, and her father. But when Renee was 5 years old, Teresa and her father got a divorce, but Teresa remarried to a man named Mark. Now, Renee viewed Mark as her real father because she grew up with him. She known him since she was 5 years old, and even when Renee turned 18, she had changed her last name to Marsden, which was Mark's last name. And even Teresa and Mark went on to have 3 other children, so technically Renee had 3 younger step-siblings. And when Renee was 15 in her sophomore year at Catholic school, that is when she met her best friend, Camilla. And Renee and Camilla were the type of duo that were absolutely inseparable. They were always doing everything together. They were always hanging out with each other, always FaceTiming each other. They had the same hobbies, same interests. Their favorite thing to do together was to just get dressed up and go out. And I mean, they experienced their whole high school experience together. And to Renee, Camilla wasn't just the type of friend that, she would meet at some point in her life and then after high school slowly stop talking to. To Renee, Camilla was the type of person that she viewed as a lifelong best friend. Someone that, she didn't want to just know for a period of her life. She wanted to experience her whole life with her. So when Camilla had introduced Renee to Brayden, Renee completely trusted Camilla because Camilla actually dated Brayden at one point. And Camilla had told Renee, don't worry, it's not going to be weird. Like, I'm just introducing you to him because when I met him, I literally thought of you. And apparently their relationship was just kind of a fling. So it wasn't really that emotional. So she introduced Brayden to Renee and they fell in love. Now, at first, Renee, of course, was a little bit skeptical because, of course, Brayden was in prison. So she kind of was a bit scared. She wasn't really going for it at first, but the more she started to talk to Brayden and learn more about him, it seemed like he was in prison due to a tragic accident. It didn't seem like he was trying to hurt his friend or trying to crash. So over time, when she started to learn more about Brayden, she realized that there was a huge soft side to him. And as far as Renee's family had the same sort of fears. Because he was in prison, they were a bit skeptical or a bit scared. But Brayden had actually messaged Teresa, Renee's mother, on Facebook and basically told her, I know that this is very unfortunate circumstances that we have to meet like this, but I want to let you know I absolutely love Renee, and I hope that one day when I'm released that you will see in me what Renee sees in me. So after that, whole interaction, it seemed like Brayden really was just a very kind guy in kind of a terrible situation. So since Brayden was in prison, Renee and Brayden only talk through text messages or phone calls or specifically Facebook Messenger. So that was their only lines of communication. But every time they would have phone calls, Brayden would never say anything. It was mostly just Renee saying things. And that was because since Brayden was in prison, he wasn't technically supposed to have a phone. So he didn't want to risk one of the guards walking past, hearing him talking, and then find his phone. So instead, they sort of had to do this in secret. So apparently Renee also couldn't visit Brayden either because Brayden had told Renee that he had given up his visitation rights in order to get a shorter sentence. So on top of that, Renee couldn't really see him, so she really just was like secluded to these phone calls, messages, and on Facebook. So about a year into Renee and Brayden's relationship online, that is when they started to plan their wedding because Brayden had a specific date that he was going to be released, and they plan on getting married on that day. So that is when Renee went out of her way to meet with wedding photographers. She started to look at different fabrics and dresses for like the chairs and what she wanted it to look like. So she was actively planning their wedding, and even Brayden as well seemed very excited for this wedding. He was helping her plan, sending her links to things. And Renee had even gotten a tattoo of Brayden's name on her lower back. It said B. Spiteri, which was Brayden's last name. But over Renee and Brayden's relationship, Brayden would kind of string along Renee. So he would tell her things like, oh, I just got update that my release date is on this date, and it would be like 4 months from then. But then a week before his release date, that is when he would go to her and say, I'm so sorry, I got really mad today and I got in a fight and my prison sentence is now extended 2 more months. And he would continuously do things like that. Or if Renee asked him, what is the number of your lawyer or your caseworker, so maybe I could set up a visitation with you. So Brayden would tell her, okay, like I'll talk to them, it's fine. And then at first he would tell her, oh, my lawyer said that it's completely fine for you to come to the jail and visit me next week. But then next week would come along and he would say, actually, my lawyer said that it's not okay. I'm so sorry. So he continued to do things like this for an entire year. And over time, Brayden also became very possessive over Renee, where he was calling and texting her constantly. He wanted to know everything that she was doing all the time, and he expected a call back for her to pick up the phone or for her to answer his messages. And even from the dates of March 13th to June 19th, so around a 3 months time, Brayden had sent off 11,000 messages to Renee. To put it into perspective, that would be about 114 messages a day, all from Brayden. And even Teresa started to see all of these signs in Renee's relationship. She noticed that Renee was constantly on her phone. She was no longer her happy, bubbly self because her whole life now has been consumed by Brayden. She has to be on his call 24/7. And so it got to a point where even Teresa had messaged Renee on Facebook Messenger, basically telling her, I don't think Brayden's good for you. This is not a normal relationship. Like, you should not be texting him or be expected to respond every single time he messages you. And in response to that Facebook message, Renee would text back saying, quote, hey, so I'm going to delete this for Renee's sake. You shouldn't be saying stuff like this to her because it's really going to hurt her feelings. I just don't want you hurting her anymore. And that text was not from Renee, but it was actually from Brayden, who now had access to all of Renee's social accounts because, again, he needed to be in control. He wanted to be more controlling. And so since he wanted to see who she was talking with all the time, he had gained access to all of her social media accounts. So even all of these messages that she could be getting from friends and family talking about Brayden would just go in, delete the messages, and then Renee would never see it, such as this text from her mom. And there was even another altercation that happened between Teresa and Brayden, where Teresa still was friends with Renee's ex-boyfriend on Facebook because Renee has only had one other serious relationship before Brayden, and the whole family really loved him. I feel like usually your first relationship, your family still has like some sort of connection with them, like on social media or something like that. So since, like, she still had a civil relationship with Renee's ex, he had posted a family photo on Facebook. It was a very wholesome picture. So Teresa decided to like it. So after she liked it, she just put her phone down, walked away, and then she noticed how her phone was going off multiple times. So she walks over there, looks at her phone, and realizes that they're all texts from Brayden, literally the second after she liked that photo. And they're all texts from Brayden, and they're saying things like how Teresa is disrespectful, how she's an unfit mother, and how she should never have liked that photo. She shouldn't even be friends with him on Facebook. So Brayden's new release date was in September, which was about 4 months away, and Renee was looking forward to it because at this point, her and Brayden have been talking for about a year and a half, and on the date that he was being released would be their year-and-a-half anniversary. So this was obviously a coincidence, but it was a very, very special day for them. And so she was so excited. She was making preparations all for their wedding. She was still meeting with multiple people for their wedding. And then, unfortunately, on the day that he was released, Brayden had told Renee that he was going to get picked up by his dad. But when he got picked up by his dad, Brayden goes on to say that he got into a street fight with a random person on the side of the road, and unfortunately he was put back into prison, and they extended his sentence by 2 years. So this completely crushed Renee. She has put so much love and energy into this relationship for the past year and a half. She's been planning their wedding for almost a year, and now the day has come where she thought that she was finally going to see him and finally start her life with him, but now he's in jail for an extra 2 years. So this absolutely broke Renee, and unfortunately, due to this, she had attempted a self-harm act, and that landed her into the hospital. So she was in the hospital for about a week, and she was discharged even though her mood that she had rated that day was a 4 out of 10. And so after this happened is when Teresa reached out to Brayden specifically and told him everything that happened and said that if you were man enough, if you really, really loved her, then you would let her go, because clearly this is just messing with her head and it's not right for her right now. And apparently Brayden agreed at the time, and slowly Renee and Brayden fell out of contact until around January, so 4 months after his release date. So in January is when Renee started dating one of her coworkers. Renee actually got engaged to her coworker, and she decided to post her engagement ring onto Facebook. But as soon as Brayden saw that picture of her engagement ring, he immediately started texting her. So Brayden was able to use his usual tactics to win Renee back. And then over time is when Renee and Brayden started to text every single day like they always used to. And so when Renee's fiance found out about this, he basically just gave Renee an ultimatum and said it's either me or him. And unfortunately, Renee chose Brayden because she felt like she had so much history with Brayden. Brayden has been with her through so many phases of her life. She has already delved so much of herself into this relationship, and she just wasn't ready to walk away from it yet. So that's when she decided to go and continue a relationship with Brayden. And so in March, about 2 months after their engagement, that's when Renee and her fiance broke off their engagement. So from the months of March to July, as far as Renee and Brayden's relationship, things were okay. They didn't really get into many fights, or not as many fights as they did before. It seemed like they had a pretty steady relationship. And so in July, that's when Brayden told Renee that his release date was on August 15th. And he told Renee that this time he doesn't want to screw it up because he feels like the first 2 times when he was going to get released, he got into a fight and he let the anger get ahead of him, and he feels like he really, really screwed up. So this time he wants to play it safe. And so because of that, he decides to throw out his prison phone just in case the guards find his phone, he doesn't get any extended time. So from July July until August 15th, that's when Renee and Brayden just cut off all contact with each other. And this month was a really hard month for Renee because when you go from, talking to someone 114 times a day to now 0, that is a huge effect on your mental and your emotional. So Renee was really feeling the effects of it, but the only thing that was getting her through it was seeing Brayden and finally being able to live this life that she had dreamt of for years and finally pursue a future with this man. So that was the only things that were really getting her through the month. And even on Facebook Messenger, even though she knew that Brayden couldn't see it, she would text him throughout the month saying, only 15 days left, can't wait to see you, or just let you know I'm thinking about you. So again, these things were really things that were keeping her close to Brayden and anticipating that August 15th date. So August 15th rolls around and Renee is at work, and as she's at work, she receives a text from Brayden. So she's completely in high spirits. She's so excited because today's the day that he's supposed to be released. But when she opens up the message, it's actually a very cold and hurtful message. He's telling her things that he doesn't even love her and he doesn't want to love her. He calls her worthless and clingy. And this just came out of nowhere because all the messages before that was Renee within the month, letting him know that she was thinking about him and she can't wait to see him. And now he's completely done a 180. So this crushes Renee, and she confides in a coworker about what just happened. And she shows the coworker the messages that Brayden had sent her. And he basically says, okay, Renee, let's get your mind off of this. How about let's go to lunch? So they walk out of the building, they're on their way to lunch. And that's when Renee just drops to the floor and starts sobbing. And she shows her coworker her phone, and it's a text from Brayden that says, quote, I think I need a break and so do you. So after Renee got this message, her and her coworker still went out to lunch, but the entire lunch she couldn't eat, she couldn't stop crying. It was just too hurtful for her. And so they eventually got back to the workplace, and that's when Renee decided to go home because she said that she was going to call the prison to see when his actual release date was. So then that's when at 2:44 p.m. Renee would get into her car and call the prison. And the phone call was about 1 minute and 30 seconds long. And although we don't know what was said on the phone call, we can assume that Renee had asked for Brayden Spiteri, but unfortunately there was no Brayden Spiteri in their system. So now Renee is starting to question if Brayden is even real. Teresa said that day when Renee came home early from work, Teresa said that Renee just looked absolutely drained. And Teresa had even asked her, is everything okay? And Renee responded, quote, nothing is wrong, Mom. So Renee goes into her room. She does her usual routine of taking off her makeup and off her work clothes. And as Teresa is there, she's sitting at the couch and she gets a text message from Brayden. And this message from Brayden says, quote, sort your daughter out, threatening to kill herself. And Teresa responded with, quote, why would she do that? And Brayden said, ask her yourself. So after Teresa got these messages, that's when she walked into Renee's room. And at this point, Renee had sent off 9 text messages to Brayden, but received no response, even though Brayden was texting Teresa during this time. So Teresa goes into Renee's room. Renee is laying down on her bed. And so Teresa sits next to her and she shows her the messages and says, is this something that I should be concerned about? But Renee replies with, quote, don't be stupid. I would never do that. And so then that's when Teresa asked, is there something going on with you and Brayden? And Renee said, quote, you don't have to worry about him, Mom. I finally found out what he's all about. And so during that time, Teresa actually had to pick up her 3 kids from the bus stop down the street. So she left the house, went to go do that. And then when she came back, she saw Renee in her room, but she was now putting on her makeup and putting on good clothes. So Teresa asked her where she was going, and Renee just said that she's going to go out to dinner with some friends. So Teresa feels good. She's like, okay, she's finally getting out. She's not, letting it consume her. And that's when Teresa asked Renee, oh, by the way, I'm about to to go take the other two kids to swim practice. Do you mind taking the other one to your grandmother's house? So Renee says yeah, and that day, that's when Teresa and the two kids went off to swim practice. Renee took her younger sibling to the grandmother's house at around 5:20 p.m. So Teresa is currently at swim practice with the two children, and as she's there at 5:49 p.m., she gets a text from Renee saying, quote, "I love you, Mom. You're my best friend. I'm sorry." And at first, Teresa didn't really think much of this message. She kind of just thought that maybe Renee was referring to earlier when Renee was being a bit cold to her, kind of, pushing her away, even though Teresa was just trying to ask what was wrong. So that's what Teresa kind of related this message to. So around that night at around 8 p.m., that's when swim practice was over. So Teresa took the two kids, picked up her other kid from the grandmother's house, and they all went back to their home. But when she got there, she realized that Renee was still out. So she finally responded to Renee's text message, but weirdly, Renee didn't respond. So she tried calling her, but again was met with no response. And so at this point, Teresa decides to contact Camilla, Renee's best friend. And she asks Camilla, "When's the last time you talked to Renee? Have you spoken to her at all today?" And that's when Camilla goes on to say that Renee had actually texted her a couple hours ago, but that was the last time that she heard of her. And Camilla asks, "Why? What's going on?" And that's when Teresa goes on to say, "I don't know. She texted me randomly a couple hours ago saying that she was sorry and that she loved me, but now I can't get in contact with her. I can't call or text her." So that's when Camilla responds with, quote, "I can come over and we can go look for her." So Camilla and Camilla's mom come over to Teresa's house and they get in the car and they start to circle around the neighborhood and try to find Renee. So at first they stop at this certain McDonald's that she absolutely loved and that she would always go to, but unfortunately they didn't see her car there. And that's when Camilla says, "Oh, well, I actually heard that Brayden got released from prison today and I know where his sister's house is because he would most likely be there right now." So Camilla takes her mom and Teresa to this specific house. They pull up in the driveway, and before they're about to get out the car, that's when Camilla says, "Oh wait, no, actually, I don't think she lives here anymore. I don't think this is the house." So they awkwardly just get back in the car and then they continue to drive around the neighborhood to try to find Renee. Later on that night, when they couldn't find Renee, that's when they decided to go to the police and file her missing. And unfortunately, when the police were able to ping Renee's phone, they found that the last time her phone was on was at 5:58 p.m. at a lake nearby called The Gap in Sydney, Australia. And for those who don't know what The Gap is a place with a recorded date of about 50 suicides a year. And The Gap is basically a big cliff that plummets down about 150 meters. So then at around 8:45 p.m., that's when the police drive over to the Gap. And when they drive up the cliff where Renee's phone was pinged, they unfortunately see her shoes neatly laid by the edge of the cliff. And they also find her car as well parked nearby. Police then sent out helicopters and divers to try to find any sight of Renee's body while they searched her car. When police gained access to Renee's car, inside the car, they found a Valentine's Day card that she had gotten from Brayden, and inside was a photo montage of them with the words, "I love you, baby." Police also found Renee's wallet, and in the wallet was a picture that Renee had made of her and Brayden, where she had basically cut out a picture of Brayden and a picture of her and kind of mashed them together. And also in the car, they would find the phone that Renee used that held all of her and Brayden's earliest messages. So Renee basically had a certain phone when she started talking to Brayden, but then eventually got a new phone and started talking to him off of this new phone. And that was the phone that was pinged, but they couldn't find that specific phone. They're assuming that it was probably somewhere in the water, but this phone that was in her car was technically her old phone. So it still had all of her information on it, and it also had all of the early messages between her and Brayden. So, unfortunately, at the time, for some reason, the police weren't able to access Renee's phone, the phone that was found in the car, because it was still locked. So, they just handed it off to Renee's family. And then Renee's brother's friend actually told Renee's family that he knows of a program and it's just $100. And that program can help you unlock locked phones. So, they got this program and they actually were able to unlock her phone. But instead of actually unlocking her phone and scrolling through it, they were only getting data from the messages. So in came like all of these random messages between Brayden and Renee, but when these messages came in, they were all jumbled and all over the place. And so that's when Renee's father started to create a spreadsheet of all of these time frames of all of these text messages and basically piece together all of the conversations that Brayden and Renee were having. And one major thing that Renee's father noticed was at the times where Renee was talking to Brayden was also around the time that Renee was talking to Camilla. And he noticed that Camilla and Brayden were never talking to Renee at the exact same time. It was always Brayden first, then Camilla. He also compared both Brayden's messaging and Camilla's messaging and found that they used the same exact lingo and even emojis. So that's when Renee's father decides to take all of this information to the police. And when the police look at this, they do find this very suspicious. And they notice that the vulgar language that Brayden would use was also the same vulgar language that Camilla would use. And as I said, Camilla and Renee had been best friends since their sophomore year of high school. And prior to Brayden, Renee was actually in another relationship in high school. But a lot of people said that in Camilla and Renee's relationship, it was very possessive on Camilla's side. Even though they weren't dating, they were literally just best friends. It seemed like Camilla was very controlling of Renee and would want to know everything that she's doing, would always keep an eye on her, always kind of bossed her around and told her what to do. And even in high school, when Renee would get a boyfriend, that ex-boyfriend that I was talking about earlier, how Teresa is still friends with him on Facebook, that relationship actually ended because of Camilla. Renee really was in a very happy, healthy relationship with him, but it was because of Camilla getting into Renee's head and telling her things like, oh, well, he should be doing more of this for you. And if I was, your boyfriend, I would probably be going above and beyond. And he's probably not doing that because he's not interested in you. So after all of that is why Renee and this ex-boyfriend broke up. Hello everyone, it's still me just thanking the sponsor of today's episode, IQBAR. Now IQBAR has been a longtime favorite of mine, specifically their IQ Mix. IQ Mix from IQBAR has 3 times the electrolytes of any other sports drink and is packed with electrolytes and nutrients shown to support sustained cognitive and physical performance. IQ Mix comes in 7 refreshing flavors like passion fruit, pina colada, lemon lime, peach mango, pink lemonade, and raspberry lemonade. IQ Mix is actually free from gluten, sugar, soy, and GMOs. It's even certified vegan and kosher. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are starting their days on the right foot with IQBAR's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom coffees. So as for me, I feel like I'm the type of person that always needs a fun drink with whatever I eat. I feel like I always have multiple drinks around, like I'll always have a water, a coffee, or some sort of fun drink. And recently I've been using IQ Mix and it literally changes my entire palate. You just put it in some water, mix it up, and it is a totally different drink. And it also feels good to know that not only am I indulging in something that's very, very delicious, but it's also extremely good for me. And right now, IQBAR is offering our special podcast listeners 20% off all IQBAR products, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text behind to 64,000, text behind to 64,000, that's behind to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See term for details. And a lot of people noticed that at the beginning of Renee and Camilla's relationship, it was very abusive, where Renee completely changed her personality. She started skipping school, she became a lot more violent and a lot more angry. And there was even one occasion where Renee was hanging out with all of her cousins, and she goes on to tell her cousins that Camilla has hit her, punched her, and caused her bruises before. And when her cousins were like, that's not right, she shouldn't do that, it was said that Renee just kind of brushed it off and said, oh, well, that's just how Camilla gets. And it was said that Camilla had a really big crush on Renee, and that was the reason why she was so controlling and possessive, and has even had a crush on her since their sophomore year of high school. And apparently there were a couple times where Camilla has tried to make passes at Renee, and allegedly one of those times something did happen, but that was the only time that something has ever happened. So over time, even Teresa started to notice some odd things between Renee and Camilla's friendship. Like this one time, Teresa went out to lunch with Renee, and they were only there for about an hour, and she had noticed that Camilla had called Renee 17 times within the hour that they were there, and she wouldn't stop calling Renee until Renee picked up. And with that, as well as like a couple of other things, and Renee at the time was skipping school, she was getting bad grades, Teresa just felt like Camilla was a bad influence on her. So Teresa even went to the school to talk to them about it, but the school said there's really nothing we can do. We can try to, separate their classes, but as far as them meeting each other in the halls or whatever they do outside of school, that's something we can't control. So after this, Teresa decided to take away Renee's phone, thinking that she wouldn't text Camilla anymore. But instead, Renee had actually secretly bought a prepaid phone and used that phone to still communicate with Camilla. But even outside of high school, it seemed like Camilla's obsession with Renee just got worse and worse, because outside of high school, Renee had actually went to beauty school because she wanted to become a hairstylist. But ironically, 6 months into her schooling is when Camilla also went to the same beauty school and was in the same classes as Renee, because she all of a sudden also wanted to be a hairstylist. And even after Renee had graduated beauty school and went on to work at a hair salon, there was this specific guy that would always come in and she developed a crush on. So over time, the two of them got to talking. They went on dates outside of the hair salon. And during this time, Camilla would literally stalk both of them on all of their dates. Like there were a couple times where Renee and this man were on the train and Camilla was just in the back, sunglasses on, hood up, just staring at them. She would also go to like the restaurants they were at, the movie theaters that they were at. And there was this one time where at this point, Renee hadn't told Camilla like what he looked like or who he was. I'm assuming just because she was nervous to. So Camilla then staked out in front of Renee's job for like 3 days, just standing outside the hair salon, waiting to see the guy walk in, just so she could like get a glimpse of what he looked like. And surprisingly, that also wasn't the first time that Camilla would just randomly show up to Renee's work. There were 2 other occasions where Camilla, the first time, she had showed up to Renee's work and just started screaming at her in front of everybody and basically telling her, why haven't you responded to my text? Why aren't you calling me back? I thought something happened to you. And Renee's like, I'm at work. I can't get to my phone. So she was able to calm down Camilla that time. But the second time, Camilla had stormed into the hair salon and started yelling to Renee about something she did, and Renee being yelled at in front of these customers and her coworkers, she got so embarrassed that she just left the hair salon and walked out to her car. And even while walking to her car, Camilla was still like walking right behind her, screaming at her, to the point where Renee now had to run to her car. So now Camilla is chasing after her, still yelling at her. So after this, Camilla was brought into questioning, and when the detectives asked her when's the last time she heard from Renee, she said that she had gotten a text from Renee at 5:47 p.m. and the message read, "I'm sorry for everything. You will always be my best friend. I hope one day you can forgive me. I love you. XOXO." So when the detectives asked Camilla about specifically Brayden, Camilla said that she didn't really know much about Renee and Brayden's relationship because as far as Renee's romantic life, Camilla says that she tried to stay away from that and try not to get involved. But then that's when the detectives reveal to Camilla that they have access to Renee's call logs as well as her text logs between her and Camilla and her and Brayden. And so that's when the detective tells Camilla, I want you to be honest with me. The phone call logs that I have here in front of me suggest to me that you might be Brayden. Are you? Camilla says, no, I know a lot of people think I am. Everyone is against me. I wish I was where Renee was right now, wherever she is. I just want to have the same peace that she's feeling right now. We could be together. Do you think she's really gone? So then the next day, Camilla was admitted into the hospital by her family because her family feared that Camilla might harm herself. And so she was in the hospital for about 4 days until she was discharged. And from all of her consultation notes, the police find that there was no mention of Brayden when she was, doing her therapy sessions. But then on September 23rd, about a month after Renee's car was found at the Gap, police go to Camilla's house and say that they have a search warrant to seize her phone and search her bedroom. But weirdly, when Camilla hands her phone over to the police open it and they don't find anything on the phone. And they realize that the phone has no SIM card. So they ask Camilla, oh, where's your SIM card? And she's like, my what? And they're like, your SIM card, the thing in your phone that has all the memory in your phone, you don't have one. And Camilla said that, oh, well, I actually got rid of it a couple months ago because I was trying to save storage on my phone. So now I mostly just use that phone for like social media or to play games when I'm on Wi-Fi. So after this is when the police go into Camilla's bedroom and they find a couple of things that kind of suggest maybe Camilla had a little bit more involvement, because when they look into Camilla's trash can in her bedroom, they end up finding a ripped up love letter that Renee had wrote to Brayden. So why would that be in Camilla's possession? And when they were looking at Camilla's walls, they see that there was a picture of Camilla and Brayden up on her wall of them together, which is again a little bit odd because if Brayden was in a relationship with Renee, Camilla's best friend, for a year and a half, why would she have old relationship photos of him in her room? So with that, the police really don't have much to go off of. They were really depending on getting her phone and getting all the information that they needed, but without that SIM card, they really don't have anything on Camilla. So Camilla is currently in the family room. She's sitting on the couch, so the police approach her and they tell her, is there anything you want to talk to me about? I'm happy to listen. And Camilla says, I was sending the text messages to Renee before I left for America in March, but I stopped right after. Renee asked me to. She wanted me to pretend that I was Brayden. The officer then asked Camilla, why would Renee want you to pretend to be Brayden? And Camilla says, I don't know. I just did it because she wanted me to. I didn't do anything else. What's going to happen to me? So the detective replies, at this stage, Camilla, we are just interested in finding out what happened to Renee. But unfortunately, since the police really had no phone, they had no connection to Camilla and Brayden at the time, it kind of just went stale. But about 6 years later, in 2019, is when police were finally able to get full access into Renee's phone. And on Renee's phone, they would find a lot of text messages between Renee and Camilla suggesting that Renee did not know that Camilla was Brayden, because she claims that it was actually all Renee's idea that Camilla catfish Renee to pretend to be Brayden, and that's what Camilla's going with. She's saying that this was all Renee's idea and she just kind of did it because Renee wanted her to. But the text messages that the police find between Renee and Camilla kind of don't suggest that at all, such as this one text that Renee had sent Camilla saying, quote, there are 2 things that I am absolutely grateful for, and I would always be thankful and grateful for the rest of my life, and that is allowing me and Brayden to start a relationship together. You don't understand how much it truly means to me, and if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have met the one person that means more than the world itself to me. And secondly, for always being there, no matter what happens. I only want the best for you, and I hope one day you find everything and you're someone that will mean more than life itself, and more than anyone or anything in the world. I'd kill someone that would try to hurt you. Learn from your mistakes, babe. But within the past few months, you've showed how strong you truly are, and I admire you for that. I'll do anything I can to make sure I can give you what I found and make sure that person is your all. It's my life mission to see you happy, and my life wouldn't be fully complete until I see the day that you have everything you've ever dreamed of. So after that text message and many other texts just like that one, it became clear to police that Renee was absolutely in love with Brayden, and she had no clue, and she was not a part of whatever Camilla was doing. And so after this, that's when the police confront Camilla with all this information. And Camilla goes on to say that the reason she created Brayden was allegedly after an argument that the both of them had. That's when Camilla started to tell Renee that she feels like Renee is spending too much time on her boyfriend and her family. And this was around the time where Renee started to really put her foot down towards Camilla. So she actually told Camilla, like, I don't care really. Like, I love my family. I love my boyfriend. I still love you, obviously, but my life is just really busy right now and I need to focus on myself. And due to this is allegedly when Camilla created Brayden. And after she created Brayden is also when she continued to catfish Renee for over a year and a half. Camilla would then start to create this dream man named Brayden, a romantic, loving man that says all the right things. And since Camilla was a woman, she knew exactly what to say. And there were also times where Camilla would kind of use Brayden to prove her own point or to prove Camilla's point. So there was this one time where Renee had showed up to a soccer game with her friend to watch Camilla play, who was in the soccer game. And apparently, at one point in the game, Camilla had scored a goal, but when she looked over to Renee, Renee was talking to her friend and unfortunately didn't see the goal. So after this, after the game, Camilla went up to Renee and started screaming at her. She was furious. She thought that, that she didn't care about her anymore, that she just showed up just to hang out instead of actually supporting her. So Renee kind of understands what's going on, and she's saying, it's not my fault. Like, I didn't know you were gonna score, and even if you did, like, I would have watched. This isn't the last soccer game that you're ever gonna have. So after this, Renee starts to rant to Brayden about what just happened and said, am I crazy for thinking like this? And Brayden replies, maybe you should see it from Camilla's perspective. I mean, if she wanted you there to love and support her and you weren't really doing that, then maybe why go at all? Like, maybe next time just show up by yourself and give her your undivided attention. I mean, she's your best friend. And so now Renee is in a situation where her best friend's mad at her. She goes to her boyfriend for comfort and he's on Camilla's side. So now she's thinking that Camilla is in the right and maybe there's something wrong with her. And I didn't even mention this, but how this conversation between Renee and Brayden about the soccer game even happened was because apparently Brayden was checking up on Renee's Facebook and saw that Camilla and Renee were having this argument about the soccer game. And then Brayden randomly texted Renee and was like, hey, I saw your text conversations between you and Camilla right now. Is everything okay? Like, do you want to talk about it? And that's how they got to talking about it, because Brayden was stalking her socials and looking through her messages, but it wasn't actually Brayden, it was Camilla. And the most confusing part about all of this is that Brayden wouldn't side with Camilla all the time. Brayden would tell Renee things like, oh, she shows up to your work and just starts yelling at you. That's so embarrassing. That's abusive. And you should not be with a friend like that. And there was even one conversation between Renee and Brayden where Renee had said, quote, Camilla just apologized. And Brayden said, I know, but don't rush into it, okay? Because it's unstable. Don't rush or push it. I can see it being an abusive blow-up fight. Renee said, okay, I won't. Brayden said, I need to talk to you about something properly, babe. Renee says, yeah, what about? Brayden says, you need to start understanding people instead of getting mad and angry. Renee says, I do. I try. Brayden says, you need to have more friends apart from Camilla, babe. You need to start to break away from her. Renee says, no, I have. Brayden says, I just don't want you getting hurt. Renee says, I won't. Brayden says, how do you know though? She's a loose-headed kid. Renee says, I know, I just need to trust that she won't hurt me. So on the night of Renee's death, that's when Teresa had contacted Brayden and texted him saying, quote, where are you? I want to speak to you. I want answers now. And then a few hours later, she texted him again saying, answer me, please. You can't do this. And Brayden never responded. So after this, there was a trial, but it was really hard to get a trial because this was in Australia. And as far as Australian laws, they have no laws against catfishing. So this was going to be a very hard angle. And so at the trial, Camilla was pleading not guilty. Camilla tried to do the same argument that she did in the detective's office, where she was saying that Renee knew that she was Brayden the entire time, and she was simply just portraying as Brayden because Renee had asked her to. Camilla goes on to say that in reality, Camilla and Renee were really in love, but they were really scared of what their families were going to say. So instead, they created Brayden as a buffer so that they could talk romantically to one another, but not really get caught. But all of this was actually completely false, because when she got that text from Renee on August 15th and she was texting Brayden threatening to off herself, that's when Brayden had sent that text to Teresa. But now we know that that text wasn't Brayden, it was actually Camilla. And Camilla said that when Renee started saying things like this and making threats like that, she didn't really think much of it because she claimed that Renee had done that multiple times in the past but never has actually done anything. But when they looked at the phone records, Renee has never threatened self-harm to Brayden before. So this again was just a complete lie. And the court even bring up a text that Camilla had sent to Teresa where Camilla had said, quote, Renee has always been like this. It's not Brayden's fault. We can't blame one person. Apparently, they didn't fight. She said to him that no one accepts him and that they love each other in a situation like this. We can't blame anyone. She always said she hated being at home before she met Brayden. And after, she always said that she would do this, but for different reasons. He is hurting as well, I'm sure, just like all of us. But there is never one person to blame. I can't handle this because I can't live without Renee. We fight because we always have that love-hate relationship. We always come out being best friends. I don't want to know the outcome because I can't cope at all. There was even another text that Teresa had sent to Camilla when Teresa was asking Camilla about if Renee had ever mentioned anything about her and Brayden's relationship, and Camilla had said, about home, yes. Renee promised me that she would never do anything like this, and yes, she always did complain about home and she wanted to move out, and she always said that Mark would abuse the kids or you, and she said that she couldn't handle it. Truth is, it never was about one person, and I never wanted to have anything to do with Brayden. I think Renee was just an upset person, to be honest. She did similar to this at school. She always felt like everyone was against her from school. She always pulled herself away from people. Brayden begged her to go out all the time, and she always had an excuse. He just stopped liking me because she would complain to him about me, like she did with everyone else, and he was upset for her. Teresa would even go on to talk about this one story where Camilla had come over to the house to hang out with Renee, and that's when Renee had told Camilla that Brayden was getting released in a few days. And to this, Camilla started screaming and had like a whole crash out, to which Teresa had to pull Camilla aside and kind of calm her down because Camilla was convinced that as soon as Brayden came home, she was going to forget all about Camilla. Renee's attention was only going to be on Brayden and her family, and that she was going to forget all about her. And when the court had asked Camilla, okay, if she really was in on all of this, then why did she call the prison on the day that she had received that really vulgar message from Brayden? Why would she call the prison that he was supposedly at asking for him? And Camilla claimed at first she didn't even know that Renee had done this because she had replied, wait, she did that? And the court was like, yeah, she did do that. Why would she do that if like she was in on everything that was going on? And Camilla claims that Renee probably did that to, quote, stay in character. There was even another point in the court where they had told Camilla if Renee really was in on all of this, then why was she looking for wedding photographers? Why was she looking at photo inspo of a groom and a bride and not two brides? And Renee had even gotten in contact with the Greek consulate general general in Greece and spoke to him personally and asked him about the legalities of someone traveling abroad if they have a felony charge on their record, because she planned on having her honeymoon in Greece the day after Brayden got released and they got married. So the court asks her, why would she specifically be asking for someone with a criminal record if you don't have a criminal record? And Camilla just says, quote, I never knew she did that. And then she just fell silent, looking down at the floor. And as far as the photo of Brayden, I know you're probably wondering, who is this man? But it turns out that Camilla doesn't even know who this man is either. The picture that they found in Camilla's bedroom of Brayden and Camilla, that was actually a photoshopped picture of Camilla and this random man that she found online. And then she photoshopped it together. And then she took that same picture from the Photoshop, just kind of cropped it a little bit and made it his profile picture on Facebook to make him look like a real person. So even Camilla herself didn't know who Brayden was. She quite literally created him. And there was even another text that Renee had sent to Brayden saying, quote, do you ever wonder sometimes how strange it is that we've never met, but we have this inseparable love for each other? Again, kind of indicating that Renee has never met Brayden. And again, why would she be saying this in a private conversation if she knew exactly what was going on and that Brayden was Camilla? And Camilla the entire time did not want to confess to anything that she did. Even the court was getting frustrated. Every question that they asked her, she kept on saying, I don't know, I don't remember, I can't recall. And even the judge at the trial said, quote, Camilla appeared completely unaffected from the beginning to the end of her evidence about the impact that her lies had. She showed no warmth, no concern, and no regard to any process of the inquest other than her own fiction. Camilla is the only person who could tell the inquest about what was said between Renee and Brayden that day. She gave evidence to the inquest over 2 days. Her evidence can only be described as distinguished at best, and ultimately nothing but a pack of lies. She demonstrated no regard to Renee's family, who desperately wanted to hear what communications were between Brayden and Renee on her last day and in her final moments. Camilla, even towards the end of her trial, just started to be straight up cruel to Renee's family, blaming Renee's family for what Renee had done to herself. Camilla goes on to say that it was her family's fault that Renee had done this because her family is just so ungrateful and cruel to Renee. Camilla started blaming Renee's family for Renee's unhappiness, and at the trial the judge even said, quote, if Renee discovered that her relationship with Brayden was but a fiction and she took her own life as a consequence, the community might reconsider that catfishing is an act which should be prohibited. Even if Renee did not discover that Camilla had committed the deception and was simply heartbroken because Brayden had ended the relationship, she has taken her life about a person who doesn't exist. That consequence is at such a gravity that the community would expect to be sanctioned. And unfortunately, at the end of all of this, Camilla was found not guilty because in Australia currently, there is no laws against catfishing. And like the judge said, if this was Renee's choice to take her own life due to a breakup, she would be taking her own life due to someone that doesn't exist. And since there is no catfishing laws or anything like that, deceiving someone on the internet, Camilla was unfortunately just able to walk free because of all of this. That is the end of today's case. I hope you guys found this case interesting, and if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple or wherever you can find podcasts, make sure to rate it 5 stars because that really helps me out a lot. And yeah, I would love to hear what you guys think about the case in the comments below. And that is all for me. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day today. And as always, I love you, I love you, I love you, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!